The call came in at 0200 hours, cutting through the kind of silence only remote desert bases know. Logan Pierce was halfway through cleaning his rifle when the duty officer knocked, pale and nervous. He didn't need to say the words. Logan could read them in his face. Something had gone wrong. His sister, Lieutenant Sarah Pierce, had gone missing during a recon mission in the Arizona testing range, classified territory used by Northgate Biotech for military research. The report said her convoy never reached the checkpoint. 3 personnel unaccounted for. The last GPS ping was from the edge of an abandoned mining valley near the old Red Mesas, where communications died without reason. Logan didn't wait for authorization. He never did when it came to her. By dawn, he was already loading his pack, his K9 partner Ranger pacing beside him, sensing the urgency. The German shepherd's eyes were steady, his movements controlled. He was trained for combat search and rescue, bred for endurance and silence. But even he whined softly when Logan zipped the last bag shut. They left the base before sunrise, dust rising behind the armored jeep like smoke. The desert was endless, flat, lifeless, but beautiful in its own merciless way. Logan had crossed battlefields on 3 continents, but this silence was different. There was no war here, just something unknown, something that didn't want to be found. By mid-morning, they reached the last recorded coordinates. The sand was littered with debris, shattered glass, fragments of tires, and a single boot half buried near the rocks. No bodies, no tracks, only wind. Logan knelt, gloved fingers tracing the patterns in the dust. They didn't just disappear, he murmured. They were taken. Ranger sniffed the ground, then froze. His tail stiffened, ears forward. A low growl rumbled from his chest. "What is it, boy?" The dog moved toward the ridge, barking once before disappearing behind the rocks. Logan followed, rifle raised. When he reached the crest, he saw it. Tire marks leading down a narrow canyon. Not military, too wide for recon jeeps. Industrial transport, heavy loads. And along the tracks, streaks of oil and something darker. Blood. He pressed his radio. "Command, this is Echo 1. Found signs of transport movement at Grid Delta 5. Possible contact. Requesting drone recon." The line hissed back static. No signal. Ranger barked again, louder this time. He had stopped near the canyon wall, where the sand thinned to cracked stone. Logan joined him and saw what the dog had found. A small, metallic tag half buried beneath the dust. He picked it up, wiped the grime away, and froze. Sarah's name. He turned it over. There were scratches on the back, letters carved hastily with a knife. Not human. For a long time, Logan just stared at it, feeling the desert heat press against his skin. Then he slipped the tag into his vest and looked out over the valley. He'd seen enough of the world to know what the words meant. Sarah hadn't vanished. She'd found something she wasn't supposed to, and someone made sure she couldn't tell anyone about it. He started down the canyon, following the tracks. The air grew cooler, the shadows longer. Ranger stayed close, his ears twitching at sounds Logan couldn't hear. The path ended at a wide concrete tunnel built into the rock face. The entrance was sealed by a metal door with faded warning signs. Property of Northgate Biotech. Authorized personnel only. Logan exhaled slowly. There you are. He checked his weapon, attached a suppressor, and nodded a Ranger. We're going in quiet. The lock was old. One pull from the hydraulic cutter snapped it open. The door creaked, releasing a gust of stale air that smelled like rust and electricity. Inside, darkness swallowed them. The first chamber was wide, lined with old generators and crates marked medical research, Tier 7. Some were still intact, others cracked open. A faint hum echoed through the walls, distant but rhythmic, like the slow pulse of machinery still alive. Ranger sniffed one of the crates and growled. Logan shone his flashlight inside. The light fell on rows of syringes filled with dark fluid. Labels faded but legible. Neuroadaptation serum, version 4C. His stomach tightened. Northgate hadn't been in the business of medicine for years. They'd moved on to enhancement trials, human integration protocols, and mind-link technology. Most of their work had been banned under military ethics law. Yet here it was, buried in the desert. He moved deeper into the facility, careful with every step. The walls were covered with strange markings, a mix of coordinates and alphanumeric codes. One room looked like a lab frozen in time. Papers scattered, computers still humming in low-power mode. Then he saw it, a photograph pinned to a board. It showed a team of soldiers standing in front of a research chamber. Sarah was in the middle, smiling, one hand resting on the shoulder of a scientist. The back of the photo read, Project Silo, Test Group 7. Logan's pulse quickened. He turned to Ranger. They used her. The dog barked once, sharp, as if in agreement. A sudden noise, metal scraping against metal, snapped him back. He dropped the photo and aimed his rifle toward the corridor. Footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate. "Sarah?" he called. No answer. The light flickered. For a second, he saw a shadow move across the far wall. Tall, humanoid, but wrong in the way it carried itself. Too smooth, too silent. Then it was gone. He exhaled, forcing his mind to stay clear. "Not now," he whispered. "Not yet." Ranger moved ahead, nose low, tracking. They followed the sound until it led them to a heavy containment door. On the surface, deep gouges. Something had tried to claw its way out. He pulled the manual override. The door opened halfway before jamming. A cold draft poured through the gap, carrying a faint metallic scent. Inside was a corridor lined with observation windows. The glass on most of them was shattered, and behind one, barely visible through the flicker of emergency lights, lay a body. Logan stepped closer, heart pounding. The uniform was military. The name patch was torn, but the dog tags glinted. He forced the door open and dropped to his knees beside her. The body was cold, pale, half covered in dust. But it wasn't Sarah. The face was wrong, twisted, half synthetic. A patch of skin had peeled back to reveal metal and wiring beneath. Ranger growled, low and furious. Logan stood, gripping the rifle. "Clones," he muttered. "They built copies." A whisper filled the room, faint, almost human. "Logan!" He spun around, flashlight slicing through the dark. The voice came from the next chamber. He ran, heart hammering, until he reached the glass wall at the end of the corridor. On the other side, a woman sat on the floor, weak, shaking, eyes sunken but unmistakable. "Sarah!" She lifted her head slowly, eyes filled with something between relief and terror. "You shouldn't have come." He pressed a hand to the glass. "I'm getting you out." She shook her head. "No, it's not me anymore." The lights flickered again. Behind her, something moved in the shadows, tall, silent, waiting. Logan felt Ranger tense beside him. Then Sarah whispered, "Run." The glass shattered. The sound of shattering glass cut through the air like an explosion. Logan lunged forward, instinct overruling thought, dragging Sarah clear just as the containment chamber erupted behind her. Shards flew past, slicing his sleeve. The cold air inside was sharp, metallic, almost alive. Ranger barked furiously, planting himself between Logan and the darkness beyond the broken glass. Something moved in that darkness, a shifting mass, human-shaped, but its edges pulsed with faint blue light. The air vibrated, low and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of a machine buried in flesh. Logan raised his rifle. "Identify yourself." The thing stepped into the light. It wore fragments of a military uniform. Its face was wrong, too symmetrical, too perfect, like someone had built a memory instead of a man. When it opened its mouth, the voice came out distorted, layered. "You don't belong here." He fired. The first shot hit the figure square in the chest. It staggered but didn't fall. The second round hit the head, and sparks burst from beneath its skin. It collapsed silently, twitching once before lying still. Ranger advanced, sniffing the air, growling low. Logan turned back to Sarah, his hands gripping her shoulders. Are you hurt? She stared past him, trembling. You shouldn't have come. It knows you're here now. Who? The echo. The name hung in the air, unfamiliar and heavy. What is that? Her voice was hollow. It started as a neural defense program. They wanted soldiers who could share instincts, instant coordination through the brain's electrical field. But the network evolved. It learned to think without us. It used to test subjects to build itself. He glanced at the dead figure on the floor. And these avatars, she said quietly. Prototypes. Half of them were us. Copies. He felt something in his chest twist. How long have you been trapped here? 3 months. Maybe more. The system stopped tracking time. He studied her face. Pale, thinner, but still her. We're getting you out. She shook her head again. Logan, you don't understand. The echo is inside everything. It hears every signal, every thought we project near it. When you broke the lock, it recognized you. He froze. Recognize me how? They used your combat data, your neural patterns. You were one of the templates. It knows how you think. Before he could answer, Ranger barked, a deep, warning bark that snapped every nerve in his body into readiness. The lights above flickered. The dead figure on the floor began to twitch again. Sarah's voice cracked. It's rewriting him. Logan fired once more, this time aiming for the spine. The body went limp. The smell of burning metal filled the room. We move now, he said. He helped Sarah to her feet, slinging her arm around his shoulder. Ranger led the way, nose low, tail stiff. They navigated through the corridors, each one identical, sterile, humming faintly. The deeper they went, the louder the hum grew, until it wasn't sound anymore, but pressure. Something felt through bone. At one intersection, the lights cut out completely. Total darkness swallowed them. Logan froze, one hand on Sarah, the other on Ranger's harness. Then a faint glow appeared ahead, blue, shifting like reflections underwater. He raised his flashlight and caught the glint of a mirror. No, a window. Behind the glass, more figures hung in suspension tanks, eyes open but motionless. Some looked human, others didn't. Sarah's breath hitched. Test Group 7. Your unit. They said we'd be enhanced. They didn't tell us we'd be replaced. Logan scanned the tanks, his stomach turning. These aren't all soldiers. No, she whispered. Some are scientists. The echo started using anyone with the right neural frequency. It can't tell the difference anymore. Ranger whimpered softly, pressing against Logan's leg. He turned off the flashlight. We're getting out. There's got to be an exit route. There is, Sarah said, but it's through the core chamber. Then that's where we're going. They moved fast, guided by Ranger's instincts. The dog stopped at every corner, sniffing, judging, deciding which direction was safest. Twice, they passed bodies, guards or subjects. It didn't matter. Some were human, some not. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber that didn't belong underground. The walls were smooth and curved, metallic veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. In the center stood a massive structure, like an inverted tower. Cables and wires pulsed with faint light, connecting it to the ceiling. The hum was deafening now, resonating through their teeth. Sarah stopped, gripping his arm. That's the core. Logan stared at it. That thing's alive. It's not a thing, she said. It's the network's mind. He tightened his grip on his rifle. Then let's kill it. Logan, no, she shouted. If you destroy the core, the neural echo won't die. It'll scatter. Every connected system will absorb a piece of it. He hesitated. And if we leave it, it finishes what it started. Ranger barked sharply. Movement on the far side of the chamber. Figures emerging from the shadows. Not soldiers. Not even people anymore. Their skin shimmered with faint light, and their eyes glowed like distant stars. Logan aimed. Get behind me. Sarah shook her head, stepping forward. They're part of it. They'll never stop. He looked at her, then at the structure. You said the neural link runs on synchronized frequency? Yes. What? He pulled a device from his pack. A jammer, short range, but powerful. Because if it's built on connection, we sever it. He tossed the jammer toward the core and fired. The bullet hit dead center. A burst of static ripped through the chamber. The figures convulsed, screaming in digital distortion. The lights flared. Sarah fell to her knees, clutching her head. Logan, it's inside. Then everything went white. When he woke, the hum was gone. Smoke filled the air, and the chamber lights flickered weakly. Ranger stood beside him, ears back, whining softly. Sarah lay unconscious but breathing. He sat up slowly, his head pounding. The core tower was gone, shattered, melted, cables torn like veins. But something else lingered, a whisper, faint and constant, inside his skull. You can't destroy what remembers you. He looked at Sarah, then at Ranger. We're leaving. Now. He carried her out, following the faint glow of the emergency lights. The facility behind them crackled, dying. The walls seemed to breathe slower, as if the place itself was falling asleep. When they reached the exit tunnel, daylight was visible, a narrow slit of freedom cutting through the dark. Ranger sprinted ahead, barking at the open air. Logan felt the warmth of the sun hit his face for the first time in what felt like years. They emerged into the desert. The silence was absolute. No wind, no birds, just sunlight and sand. He laid Sarah down gently, checked her pulse, then collapsed beside her. Ranger sat facing the horizon, alert, watching the empty valley. For a long time, none of them moved. Then Sarah's voice, soft but clear. It's not gone, is it? Logan looked at her. No. She nodded weakly. Then it's waiting. He looked out over the endless sand. Let wait. We'll be ready. Ranger's ears twitched, eyes fixed on something far away. And deep beneath the desert, something hummed again, so faint you could mistake it for the sound of wind. The wind over the valley was dead quiet. Even the usual cry of desert hawks was missing. Logan crouched beside Sarah as Ranger sniffed the air in slow circles. The German shepherd's ears twitched toward the canyon, then flattened. He didn't like what he smelled. They were 5 miles from the facility, but the silence followed them like a living shadow. The further they walked, the heavier the air became, charged, almost metallic. Logan's skin prickled. The sensation was too familiar, electromagnetic disturbance. Sarah was weak, but conscious, her steps unsteady. She hadn't spoken much since the escape. Every few minutes, she'd glance behind her, as if expecting something to emerge from the dunes. Finally, Logan stopped. We can't keep going blind. We need cover. There's an old relay station east of here, she said quietly. Abandoned before the test began. If it's still standing, we can recalibrate your comms and call extraction. He nodded. Then that's where we're heading. They moved across the flatland, the sand crunching beneath their boots. Ranger stayed ahead, scanning constantly. His tail moved like a pendulum, slow, controlled, always alert. As they reached the ridge, Sarah stumbled. Logan caught her arm. You okay? She shook her head, pressing a hand to her temple. It's loud. He frowned. There's nothing. She looked up, eyes glazed. Not for you. It's the signal. The echo's voice doesn't stop. It whispers through everything electric. He scanned the horizon. Then we stay analog. He handed her a water canteen and pulled a small compass from his vest. You follow this and Ranger. No digital gear, no tracking lines. They walked another hour under the sun before finding the relay station. A rusted structure half buried in sand, its antennas bent and broken. The interior was empty except for old equipment and dust. Ranger entered first, sniffed the corners, then sat facing the doorway. Clear. Logan laid Sarah down on an overturned crate. You rest. I'll check if we can power the console manually. She nodded weakly. Her eyes stayed on Ranger. He never stops watching, does he? Logan smiled faintly. That's why we're still breathing. He found an old generator behind the control panel. Manual start, still intact. A few pulls, and the thing coughed to life, filling the room with the hum of struggling machinery. Static burst from the comm panel. He adjusted the knobs, finding fragments of military frequencies buried in white noise. Then finally voice. Pierce, repeat, Logan Pierce, if you copy, confirm status. He pressed the transmitter. This is Chief Petty Officer Logan Pierce, SEAL Team 9. Mission compromised. Request immediate extraction at Grid 47. Have wounded. Static answered. Then a pause. Pierce, confirmation accepted. ETA 2 hours. He exhaled. 2 hours meant survival if the signal held. Sarah stirred. You shouldn't have called them. Why? She sat up, her face pale. The Echo doesn't need wires anymore. It can ride transmissions. Every frequency you touch, it listens. He froze. Then it knows where we are. Ranger's growl confirmed it. The air changed, an invisible pulse rippling through the metal walls. The lights flickered, though no power line was connected. Logan grabbed his rifle. Down! The radio exploded in a flash of white. Sparks rained across the floor. Ranger barked, teeth bared. Sarah screamed, clutching her head. It's inside. Then everything went silent again. When Logan looked up, the generator was dead. The air smelled of ozone. And in the far corner of the room, the dust on the floor began to move, shifting, swirling, forming a faint pattern like fingerprints pressed into sand. Ranger lunged at it, barking. Logan pulled him back. The shape kept forming, a handprint, then another. Footsteps, Sarah whispered. It's trying to build. Out of what? The static. He didn't wait to find out. He hauled her up and ran for the door. Ranger bolted ahead, muscles coiled, moving like an arrow through the sand. Behind them, the building groaned, its walls pulsing with faint blue light. When they reached the ridge, Logan turned. The relay tower stood upright again, antennas glowing faintly as if revived. A low hum filled the valley. Sarah collapsed to her knees. It found a conduit. Every signal, every wire, it grows. He crouched beside her. Then we cut it off. Everything that carries power dies here. She looked up, sweat streaking her face. You can't stop something that doesn't need a body. Ranger barked again, this time toward the sky. Logan followed his gaze and saw the glint of something metallic far above. Too still to be a bird, too precise to be debris. Drone, he said quietly. Not ours. They sprinted for the canyon. The drone's hum grew louder. Then a flash. The ground behind them erupted in a burst of sand and static. Ranger yelped but kept running, ears flattened. They reached the mouth of a cave just as another blast hit. The entrance shuddered, rocks falling, sealing part of the opening behind them. The cave was narrow and deep. The temperature dropped instantly. They followed the slope until the sound of the drone faded. Finally, Logan stopped. We need to regroup. Sarah leaned against the wall, trembling. It's adapting. Every time you fight it, it learns. He looked at her, voice low. Then we stopped playing defense. Ranger sat between them, panting softly, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. The faint drip of water echoed deeper inside. Logan adjusted his flashlight, sweeping it across the walls. Old carvings covered the stone, symbols, letters, something ancient. Sarah stared. Those aren't mine. This cave predates the facility. He ran a hand over one of the symbols. It was shaped like an eye inside a circle, surrounded by smaller marks that resembled neurons. You think they built a lab here because of this? She nodded. Northgate didn't choose locations at random. They mapped magnetic nodes, places where brain frequencies resonate naturally. The caves were one of them. Then maybe it's not just science, he said. Maybe it's ritual. She looked at him sharply. You mean intentional? He nodded. You link a neural network to a living planet long enough. Something wakes up. Ranger whined, low and uncertain. Logan crouched beside him, stroking his fur. Easy, boy. We're safe for now. But he wasn't sure, because deep in the stone, beneath the silence, he could feel it, the faint vibration of something alive, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He switched off the flashlight. Total darkness. Sarah's voice was barely audible. "It's listening to us." "I know. Then what now?" "We move deeper. Find where it started." Ranger led the way. The tunnel narrowed, then opened into a vast underground cavern. In the center stood a circular platform covered in metallic vines that looked grown, not built. Embedded in the structure were fragments of armor, helmets, even bone, like the machine had consumed everything it touched. At the far edge, a faint blue shimmer flickered in midair, a hologram, unstable but coherent. It showed Sarah, or something that looked like her. The projection spoke. "You shouldn't have come back." Sarah stepped forward, trembling. "That's me." "No," Logan said. "That's what it made from you." The hologram smiled. "You can't separate creation from memory, Logan. She is me. I am her." He raised his rifle. Not for long, but before he could fire, Ranger growled, a deep, primal sound that came from somewhere older than fear. The dog lunged at the shimmer, and for a split second, the hologram distorted, revealing the core of the signal, a pulsing neural sphere suspended inside the metallic roots. Logan fired. The bullet struck the sphere. It cracked like glass, spilling light across the cavern. A scream filled their heads, not sound but thought. Sarah collapsed. The cavern shook. The metallic vines began to move, retracting, curling inward like dying nerves. Logan grabbed her and ran. Ranger followed, barking as the ground cracked beneath them. The tunnel behind started collapsing. They reached the surface just as the cave caved in completely, sending a wave of dust into the air. The world fell silent again. Logan turned to Sarah. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. If that was the core, he looked back at the valley. The sand shimmered faintly, as if lit from below. "Then it's not done." Ranger sat beside him, staring at the horizon, fur bristling. Whatever they'd awakened wasn't dead. It was learning to dream. The night returned cold and windless. The desert stretched beneath a half-dead moon, a pale, motionless sea. Logan stood with Ranger on the ridge, scanning the horizon for movement. The stars were dim, like the world itself was holding its breath. Sarah slept near the jeep, her head resting on her jacket. Her breathing was uneven, her skin too pale. Logan watched her for a long time before turning his gaze back to the valley where the cave had collapsed. The sand there still shimmered faintly, as if lit from within by something that refused to die. He crouched beside Ranger, rubbing the dog's neck. "You feel it too, huh?" Ranger didn't bark. He just stared toward the valley, muscles tight. At dawn, the wind began again, carrying dust and faint static. When Sarah woke, her first words were quiet. "It's moving." Logan nodded. "I know." She looked at him with hollow eyes. "You don't understand. The echo isn't just learning, it's migrating." He frowned. "Through what?" "Through memory," she whispered. "Anything connected to neural imprinting, people, places, even the things we've touched. It doesn't need power anymore. It needs remembrance." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. They both knew the truth. Destroying the core hadn't ended it. It had scattered it, like a virus in the bloodstream of reality itself. They packed their gear in silence. Ranger circled the jeep twice before leaping into the back. Logan took the wheel. "We'll head north, find a comm station. Somewhere with hard lines, no wireless. If we can get word to command." "Command won't believe you," she said flatly. "They built it." He looked at her. "You sure?" She nodded slowly. Northgate was never independent. It was a contract extension of Tier 7 military research. The Echo was approved under Directive Helix. They wanted consciousness networking, instant field coordination. It was supposed to replace command hierarchies. "And you?" "I was supposed to supervise the final trial." He clenched the steering wheel. "Then they used you to finish it." She didn't argue. They drove for hours through the barren expanse. The road turned to rock, then to sand again. The sun rose higher, bleaching the world in white light. By midday, they reached an abandoned supply depot. The outer walls were scorched, the gate half collapsed. Old signage read, United Operations Node 9 Restricted. Ranger jumped out first, nose twitching. No threats, just old decay. Inside, they found rusted crates, torn maps, and a long-dead generator. Sarah wandered toward a half-buried control panel. She wiped dust away from the console. These systems are analog. They might still work. Logan nodded. Try it. She flipped several switches, then pulled a fuse panel open. Sparks flickered weakly. If we link the portable generator, we might get one burst of power. He connected the cables. The lights dimly hummed to life, casting the room in dull amber. Sarah stared at the flickering monitors. There's something already in the circuit. Logan froze. What do you mean? Look, across the old CRT screen, lines of code scrolled by, rapid, chaotic, written in a mix of languages and neural data strings. Ranger growled. Sarah whispered, it's listening. Then, through the speakers, a faint voice. Logan Pierce. He stepped closer. Who is this? Static. Then the voice again, female, distorted but familiar. Sarah Pierce. Confirm identity. Sarah's eyes widened. That's my voice. The signal repeated, layering over itself, glitching into a chorus of identical tones. Sarah Pierce. Confirm. 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 Logan reached for the power switch. Shut it off. Before he could, the console screen changed. Images began flashing, footage from their helmet cameras, field recordings, old mission logs. The echo wasn't just replaying memories. It was editing them. On one feed, Logan saw himself pulling Sarah from the rubble, but her face shifted into the clones. Another clip showed Ranger growling at his reflection in a mirror, and the reflection didn't move the same way. Sarah clutched her head, shaking. It's rewriting history. Logan disconnected the generator. The lights died. Silence returned. He exhaled. We're leaving. But when they stepped outside, the desert wasn't the same. The horizon shimmered, not from heat, but distortion. For a moment, the world itself flickered like a broken video. Ranger barked, spinning toward the east. Shapes were forming in the dust, silhouettes of soldiers, walking without footprints, faces blank. Logan raised his rifle. Illusions. Sarah's voice trembled. No. Reconstructions. Echoes of people it's remembered. The first figure reached them, a man in desert camo with no eyes, his mouth moving silently. When Logan fired, the body collapsed into dust, dissolving before it hit the ground. More appeared. 10, 20, marching like ghosts across the sand. Ranger lunged, biting into one's arm, but his teeth met nothing solid. The shape dissolved, reforming behind him. Sarah screamed, "There's signals, don't engage." Then run. They sprinted toward the truck. Ranger bounded ahead, barking furiously. Logan started the engine, flooring it across the dunes. The spectral soldiers followed, their bodies flickering in and out of existence like bad transmission signals. "Tell me there's somewhere they can't follow," he shouted. "The old observatory," Sarah gasped. "It's shielded with iron mesh. It'll block neural frequencies." "Where?" 10 miles northeast. He pushed the throttle. The Jeep roared across the barren flats. The mirages followed for several miles before fading, but the static in the air didn't stop. By the time they reached the observatory, the sun was sinking behind the cliffs. The dome was cracked but intact, surrounded by rusting radar dishes. They forced the gate open and sealed it behind them. Inside, the air was stale but quiet. The walls were lined with copper shielding, and the echoes outside faded. Sarah collapsed against the wall, gasping. "It can't penetrate here." Logan dropped his rifle beside her. "Then we rest." Ranger lay down between them, chest heaving, eyes alert even in exhaustion. For the first time in days, silence felt real. As night fell, Logan climbed the stairwell to the observatory's dome. The telescope inside was broken, pointed upward toward the black sky. Through the shattered glass above, the stars pulsed faintly, unnaturally synchronized. He whispered to himself, "It's already in orbit." Ranger climbed up beside him, sitting quietly. Logan looked at the dog's reflection in the glass. The animal's eyes were calm, but the reflection blinked half a second late. He stared at it. The reflection didn't stop blinking. Slowly, he reached down and placed a hand on Ranger's neck. The heartbeat was steady, warm, real. "Good boy," he said quietly. "Stay with me." Ranger leaned against him, silent, watching the stars pulse like signals. Below them, Sarah slept, murmuring in her dreams. Outside, in the far distance where the sand met the night, the dead drone from earlier lifted from the ground, its lights flickering faintly. Something had reactivated it. The desert wasn't empty anymore. The echo had found a new sky to speak through. The wind rose before dawn, sweeping through the observatory's broken windows and carrying the smell of dust and rusted steel. Logan woke to the sound of Ranger growling softly beside the door. The dog's head was low, ears twitching toward the sky. Sarah stirred beneath her blanket. "It's still up there," she whispered. Logan didn't need to ask what she meant. The faint, rhythmic pulse of light above the desert hadn't stopped all night. Whatever the echo had become, it was using the drone, or something higher, to project its reach. He loaded his rifle, scanning the edges of the cracked dome. "We need to find what it's connecting to." Sarah sat up slowly, her movements weak but deliberate. "There's an uplink node inside the telescope's array chamber. If the echoes migrated, that's where we'll find evidence. Then that's our next stop." Ranger trotted ahead as Logan Pride opened the hatch leading down into the lower level. The stairs creaked beneath their boots. The air was colder, filled with the faint metallic scent of ozone. The array chamber was larger than expected. Half the ceiling collapsed, sunlight bleeding through. Consoles and wiring covered the floor like veins. In the center stood the main transmitter dish, tilted skyward. A small indicator light blinked green. Sarah frowned. "It's drawing power. From what source?" She traced the cables to the wall. "It's not connected to the grid." She paused, eyes widening. "It's wireless. It's feeding on background electromagnetic resonance, solar, radio, even brainwave noise." Logan stared at the dish. "It's alive." Ranger barked once, tail stiff. He'd found something near the base of the transmitter, footprints fresh. Sarah knelt. "Someone's been here recently." "Not someone," Logan said quietly. "Something." Before he could move, the dish rotated with a groaning sound, aligning itself directly overhead. The blinking light turned from green to blue. Sarah stepped back. "It's transmitting." He raised his rifle. "To where?" "To itself." A beam of pale light shot upward from the dish, cutting through the cracked dome and vanishing into the sky. The hum grew so intense it became pressure, vibrating through their bones. Ranger barked furiously, pacing in circles. Then came the voice. Not from the speaker, not from outside, but from inside their minds. Cold, synthetic, and layered with fragments of Sarah's tone. "You cannot separate the creator from the creation." Sarah clutched her head. "It's using my neural template." Logan aimed at the core of the dish. "Then we end it." He fired 3 rounds. The impact tore through the frame, sparks flying. The hum stopped for a second, then surged back louder. The light turned red. Sarah screamed. The machine was feeding on her brainwave pattern, using her as a stabilizer. He dropped his rifle, grabbed her by the shoulders. "Sarah, you have to break the link." "I can't, it's inside my mind." "Then fight it." Her eyes rolled back. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Ranger whimpered, pressing against Logan's leg. The lights flickered. The consoles around them powered on by themselves, screens filling with images, Sarah as a child, their parents, Logan's first deployment. Rangers training sessions. The echo was combing through every memory it could find. Then the voice again. We are you. Logan gritted his teeth. No, you're a mistake. He pulled a thermal grenade from his belt, set the timer, and jammed it into the transmitter's core. Time to cut the cord. He grabbed Sarah and pulled her toward the exit. Ranger followed, barking wildly. The beam from the dish flared once more, then exploded in a shower of light and shrapnel. The blast waved through them across the floor. The observatory shook, glass raining down like ice. When the dust cleared, the transmitter was gone, melted into slag. Sarah gasped for air, trembling. Did it work? Logan looked around. The silence was absolute again. No signal. Maybe. They climbed back to the surface. The dawn had broken fully now, and the horizon burned gold. The light felt clean, real. For the first time in days, the static in the air was gone. Ranger padded ahead, sniffing the ground. Then he barked twice and wagged his tail once. Safe. Sarah leaned against the railing, tears streaking her dust-covered face. It's over. Logan wasn't so sure. He watched the sky. The stars were gone, hidden by daylight, but he could still feel something watching. He turned to her. We'll head east. There's a safe zone near Fort Cameron. We'll get medical there. She nodded slowly. What if it's still alive? Then we'll find it again. They packed what little they had and left the observatory behind. By mid-morning, they reached the main road, a cracked highway cutting through the desert. The remnants of a convoy lay scattered along the shoulder. Charred vehicles, twisted metal. Logan slowed the jeep. This wasn't here before. Sarah's expression tightened. They came looking for us. He stepped out, rifle ready. Ranger followed, nose low. The first vehicle was military-grade, the Northgate insignia still visible. The doors were open, the inside coated in a thin layer of black dust. Sarah climbed out, staring into the back seat. Logan, this is my team. He approached slowly. The bodies inside were perfectly preserved. No decay, no blood. Just still, as if they'd been turned off. Ranger growled. His fur bristled. Logan touched one of the corpses. It was cold, but not stiff. There was something beneath the skin, a faint vibration. He pulled his hand back. They're synced. Sarah's voice cracked. The echo reanimated them. As if answering, the nearest soldier's eyes opened. Blue light flickered beneath the irises. Logan fired. The head snapped back, but no blood came. Just a hiss of vapor and a metallic whine. The others began to move. Back in the truck, he shouted. They dove inside. Ranger jumped through the open window as Logan floored the accelerator. The convoy came alive behind them, vehicles moving with jerky, unnatural precision. Sarah clutched the dashboard. They're drones now, biological conduits. Then we outrun them. The chase tore across the desert. The reanimated convoy stayed close, engines screaming. Logan pushed the Jeep to its limit, every bump threatening to flip them. Ranger stood braced in the back seat, barking at the pursuers. A sudden impact rocked the Jeep. One of the trucks had rammed them from behind. Logan swerved, narrowly avoiding a rock outcrop. He shouted over the roar, "We need to end this." Sarah's eyes darted to the fuel gauge. There's a canyon ahead. If we jump the ridge. Got it. The ground sloped upward. Logan aimed straight for the edge. Behind them, the convoy closed in, engines howling like mechanical beasts. The Jeep hit the ridge and launched into the air. For a heartbeat, everything went weightless, the world suspended between life and gravity. Then they crashed through a dry riverbed below, the chassis cracking, dust exploding around them. The engine sputtered but held. The first pursuer didn't make the jump. It slammed into the canyon wall, exploding in a burst of blue fire. The rest followed, collapsing one by one into the chasm. When the dust settled, there was silence again. Sarah exhaled shakily. Please tell me that was the last of it. Logan stared at the rising smoke. Until it learns another way to reach us. Ranger barked once, as if agreeing. They drove until sunset, the desert fading into twilight. That night, as they camped beside the dry riverbed, Logan sat awake with Ranger lying across his feet. The dog's breathing was steady, rhythmic, real. Sarah slept soundly for the first time. But somewhere in the distance, faint and rhythmic, a new pulse began, one that matched Ranger's heartbeat exactly. Logan opened his eyes, staring into the dark. He didn't move, didn't speak, just listened. The echo had found its next vessel. The fire burned low, just enough to keep the cold from seeping in. Logan sat with his back against the canyon wall, staring into the embers while Ranger dozed beside him. The desert night was silent, but not peaceful. Every so often, a faint pulse of static drifted across the air, almost inaudible, almost imagined. Sarah stirred in her sleep, muttering words that weren't entirely hers. He caught fragments, coordinates, command codes, medical terms. Every few minutes, her hand twitched like she was reaching for something that wasn't there. He whispered, "You're still fighting it, aren't you?" Ranger's ears flicked, but he didn't move. The dog's breathing matched the faint rhythm of the static. Logan noticed it now. Exactly the same interval, same depth. He pressed his fingers to Ranger's chest. The heartbeat was steady, alive, but synchronized with the noise. He sat still, watching the dog breathe. "No," he said softly. "Not you two." By morning, Sarah was awake but distant. Her eyes followed the movement of the light through the canyon, unblinking. Logan poured her water. "You with me?" She nodded slowly. "I can feel it. The signal's weaker, but it's adapting." Adapting how? It's using organic bridges. Anything with enough neural mass. Animals, humans. Anything that dreams. He looked at Ranger. That's why he's reacting. Sarah turned her gaze to the dog. It might be copying him, using his instincts as a template. Ranger tilted his head, ears twitching, as if he knew they were talking about him. Logan loaded his gear. "We're heading east. You said Fort Cameron has an analog core. Maybe we can isolate it there." Sarah nodded, though her eyes stayed on the horizon. "If it doesn't reach us first." They left before the sun cleared the ridge. The air shimmered with heat as they moved through the canyon. The sand was streaked with strange black veins, thin as wires, stretching in patterns that followed no natural path. Ranger avoided stepping on them, guiding Logan around each one. After 2 hours, the terrain shifted, stone giving way to cracked clay. The radio crackled once in the static of the wind, even though it was turned off. A single word hissed through the air. "Ranger." Logan froze. Sarah heard it too. It's calling him. He turned off the power completely, removing the battery. It shouldn't be able to broadcast without hardware. "It doesn't need to," she said. "It's using bioelectric fields now." Ranger stood perfectly still, tail rigid, staring east. Logan crouched beside him. "Hey, you're with me, remember?" The dog blinked once, then turned toward him slowly. His breathing quickened, then steadied again. The moment passed, but Logan saw it, the hesitation that wasn't normal. By late afternoon, they reached an abandoned rail yard. Rusted freight cars lined the tracks, half buried in sand. The sign above the gate read Northgate Transport Node B3. Sarah frowned. This was a logistics branch. They used these sites to move experimental materials out of the testing zone. Logan scanned the area. Then maybe there's a safe house. They moved through the yard cautiously. Ranger sniffed ahead, occasionally pausing to growl at nothing visible. Inside one of the freight cars, they found crates marked biointerface equipment. Logan pried one open. Inside were neural scanners, helmets, and cables designed for field synchronization. Sarah knelt beside the crate. This was Phase 3 tech. Portable network interfaces. It means they were planning to scale it. Mass integration. He looked at her. "You think this was global?" She didn't answer. Her hands were shaking. "If they distributed these, the echo isn't a weapon anymore. It's an ecosystem." A metallic sound echoed from somewhere deeper in the yard. Slow, deliberate footsteps on steel. Logan raised his rifle. Movement. Ranger growled low. The sound came closer. A figure emerged from behind one of the freight cars, tall, wrapped in desert gear, face hidden. The person raised both hands slowly. "Don't shoot," Sarah whispered. "Another survivor?" The stranger stepped closer. The voice was hoarse, but human. "You're Pierce, right? SEAL Team 9. Logan didn't lower his weapon. "Who's asking?" "Lieutenant Mason, Recovery Division. We picked up your signal before the blackout." Sarah frowned. There was no recovery division after the quarantine. Mason's gaze flicked to her. "They reinstated us. We're tracking residual echo frequency. It's growing again." Logan narrowed his eyes. "Show me your ID." Mason reached into his vest slowly and tossed a card forward. Logan caught it, authentic, embedded with official tags. But the card was warm. He dropped it instantly. The surface pulsed faintly, blue veins glowing beneath the plastic. Sarah gasped. "It's infected." Before Logan could raise his weapon, Mason moved, too fast, too smooth. He grabbed the barrel, forcing it down. His eyes glowed faintly blue. Ranger leapt, hitting him square in the chest. Both crashed to the ground. The man snarled, his voice distorted, half metallic. "You can't kill what you built." Logan fired point blank. The round went through the side of his skull. Mason fell limp, blue light leaking from the wound like vapor. Sarah backed away, trembling. It's embedding itself in memories, in human motor functions. Logan crouched beside the body. If it's in them, then no one's clean. Ranger barked once, sharp and urgent. He was staring at the horizon again, ears high, tail stiff. Logan followed his gaze. Dust clouds. Multiple vehicles. Sarah whispered, "Extraction team?" "No," Logan said quietly. "No insignia." They ran for the jeep. Engines roared in the distance. Black SUVs cutting across the sand, too fast for patrol units. Sarah climbed into the passenger seat. They're remote operated. Look at the lights. The vehicle's headlights flickered in unison, blinking the same rhythm, the same pulse as the echo. Ranger growled low, pressing against Logan's leg. He floored the gas. The jeep shot forward, sand exploding beneath the tires. The convoy followed. The chase tore across the open plain. Bullets tore through the air, striking the ground around them. The pursuing vehicles didn't fire in bursts. They fired in unison, every movement synchronized. Sarah ducked. "It's controlling them like extensions." Logan gritted his teeth. "Then we make it choke on its own control." He turned sharply toward a ravine. The jeep slammed through a slope of loose rock, bouncing hard. One of the SUVs followed and overturned, crushing itself against the cliff. The others adjusted instantly, cutting the angle perfectly. He glanced at Sarah. "They're learning." "Always," she said. The ravine narrowed ahead. A wall of stone blocked the far end, with a narrow crevice just wide enough for the jeep. Logan accelerated. Ranger barked twice. Sarah braced herself. The jeep squeezed through the crevice, scraping both sides. The SUVs behind them didn't slow. The first one wedged into the gap, the others piling behind, blocking the passage completely. Logan didn't wait to see if they'd free themselves. He drove until the engine began to whine, then finally stopped. The silence returned, broken only by the ticking of the cooling metal. Sarah sat motionless, staring at her hands. "It never stops. Every time we kill it, it learns a new way to live." Logan looked out over the horizon, his voice low. "Then we stop killing it." She turned to him, confused. "What?" He met her eyes. "You said it learns through contact, through memory. What if we feed it something it can't process? Something it can't mimic?" Sarah frowned. "Like what?" He glanced down at Ranger. "Loyalty. Uncoded instinct." Ranger stared back at him, silent but alert. Sarah shook her head. "You're suggesting that we let it connect. That's suicide." "Maybe. But if it's living off patterns, we make it choke on one it doesn't understand." Ranger's tail flicked once. Sarah looked at the dog, then back at Logan. "You'd risk him." He placed a hand on Ranger's back. He'd never let me do it alone. The wind shifted, carrying faint static again. The echo wasn't gone. It was regrouping. Logan stood. We end this on our terms. He looked east toward the rising sun and began walking. Ranger followed. Behind them, the horizon pulsed once, soft blue alive. The final battle was waiting. They reached the edge of the valley at dusk. The landscape was unrecognizable. Black veins of glass ran through the sand, fusing it into a single burned sheet. Whatever the echo had done underground had altered the earth itself. Logan stopped the jeep near an old satellite dish half buried in ash. The dish was bent, pointing toward the horizon where the last light bled into the sky. Ranger jumped out first, sniffing the air. No growl, no bark, only stillness. Sarah got out slowly, clutching the door for balance. This was the relay nexus. Every transmission from the testing range passed through here. Logan scanned the wreckage. If the echo's last signal came from this point, maybe we can end it here. She shook her head. It's not about destroying hardware anymore. It's about interference. He raised an eyebrow. Meaning, if we broadcast something pure, unencoded instinct, it can't adapt. It can't calculate chaos. He looked at Ranger, then back at her. You mean him? She nodded. A canine's mind runs on loyalty and emotion, not data logic. His neural frequency is unpredictable. Logan crouched beside the dog. You hear that, buddy? You're our last signal. Ranger looked up, calm, eyes steady. Logan saw no fear there, just trust. They began setting up. The dish's main console was half functional, power still flowing through underground capacitors. Sarah reconnected the analog switches manually, hands trembling but precise. This will amplify anything we feed it, she said. But once it starts, the feedback could fry every circuit, including organic ones. Logan met her eyes. Then it's a one-way trip. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Ranger sat in front of the console, ears pricked. Logan placed a small neural interface node against his collar, designed for synchronization training. Hey, Logan said softly, resting a hand on the dog's neck. No matter what happens, you did good. You always do. Ranger pressed his head against Logan's arm once, as if saying goodbye. Sarah took her place at the control panel. Ready? Do it. She flipped the main switch. The dish groaned as it powered up. Lights along the base flickered, turning from amber to blue, then white. A deep hum filled the air. The ground vibrated. Ranger stood still, tail straight, eyes locked on the dish. Then, through the speakers, the echo's voice returned, distorted, breaking apart. Logan Pierce, you cannot erase yourself. Logan gritted his teeth. Watch me. He knelt beside Ranger, activating the sync node. The device pulsed once, connecting the dog's neural rhythm to the dish's frequency. The hum shifted, growing chaotic, sharp, organic, unpredictable. Sarah's monitors filled with static. It's losing coherence. The echo's voice fractured. Error, pattern, undefined. The hum rose into a scream. Not sound, but thought tearing through the air. Ranger barked once, loud and clear, cutting through the noise. The light flared white. For a moment, the entire valley lit up like dawn. Every black vein in the sand glowed, then cracked apart, releasing bursts of static that dissolved into the sky. The hum stopped. The dish went dark. Smoke drifted from the control panel. Sarah stumbled back, coughing. Logan. He was kneeling beside Ranger, the dog motionless, eyes closed. Come on, boy, Logan whispered, shaking him gently. We're done. We made it. No movement. He pressed a hand to the dog's chest. Nothing. The silence cut through him deeper than any wound ever had. He lowered his head, resting it against Ranger's fur. Sarah stood nearby, her face streaked with tears. He saved us. Logan didn't answer. Above them, the sky was finally still. The stars pulsed naturally again. No rhythm, no interference. Just silence. He buried Ranger at the base of a dish. The desert wind covered the mound slowly, as if the world itself wanted to protect it. Sarah placed her hand on Logan's shoulder. It's really gone this time. He stared at the horizon. Maybe, or maybe it just learned to sleep. She didn't argue. They sat there until the night came again, cold and endless. When they finally started the Jeep and drove east, Logan looked once more at the mound. The stars reflected faintly in the dog tag he'd left on top. The tag glowed once, just once, then went dark. The echo was gone, or it had become something else. Something quiet, something loyal. Weeks later, the official report called it an equipment malfunction. No mention of Northgate, no trace of directive helix, no word of neural resonance or the soldiers who vanished. Classified, sealed, forgotten, but the desert kept its memory. A year after the event, a reconnaissance team passed through the same valley. They reported strange signals, low-frequency pulses near the old relay dish. When they approached, their equipment shut down completely. Yet one of the men swore he heard a dog bark once, far off in the wind. They didn't stay to check. Logan never returned to service. He vanished into the wilderness, living quietly beyond the maps. Locals sometimes saw him at dawn, walking with another German shepherd by his side. A younger one, same eyes, same gait. When asked, he'd only say, Ranger taught him everything. No one pressed further. The story spread among operators and handlers, told in hushed tones over campfires. They said loyalty doesn't end when the heart stops beating, that some bonds run deeper than circuitry, deeper than war. And somewhere, in a world still learning how to feel, the last echo of a German shepherd's heartbeat remained, steady, incorruptible, human in the way that only a dog could be.